Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are undertaking a really intense re-examination of one of classical mythology's most enduring and, let's be honest, tragic figures, Medusa.
Mm.
And if the stories, define her primarily by her monstrous transformation, you should prepare for a pretty radical shift in perspective.
Yeah.
We've dove into a powerful stack of sources, novel excerpts, and some author notes that really pull Medusa out of the realm of simple myth and place her firmly in, well, the harsh political reality of the ancient world.
Our mission here is centered on understanding the woman she was before the snakes, before the petrifying gaze.
Right.
And this source material, it operates within a long tradition. I mean, you can go back to poets like Ovid that sought to recontextualize Medusa, to see her as a victim of divine cruelty, not some born monster.
Exactly.
The narrative we're pulling from today focuses squarely on her mortality, her agency, and the catastrophic institutionally sanctioned traumas that were delivered by the Olympians that ultimately, weaponized her existence.
And the single most crucial detail that defines this entire reimagining, a detail that so often gets obscured or just ignored in the basic myths, is that Medusa is the mortal daughter of minor sea gods.
Phorcys and Ceto.
Right, Phorcys and Ceto, and she is not immortal like her two older sisters, Theno and Euryale.
And that mortality is everything. It's the ticking clock, it's the core vulnerability, and it's really the driving motivation behind every single choice she makes.
It puts her on a completely different existential footing.
Completely. I mean, from everyone else in her family and this Olympian world, she so desperately wants to join. It's the source of her deepest anxiety, and you could argue her greatest ambition.
Her life is finite in a universe that is just ruled by the eternal.
And that status, that finitude, it defines the environment she was raised in. It wasn't just some minor divine court. It was a home absolutely steeped in the bitterness of reduced status.
Resentment.
Oh, a deep resentment against the ruling Olympians that just festered like an old wound.
That is such a fascinating lens. Let's really unpack the context of this sea court. Because you're right, we're not talking about the golden splendor of Olympus. This sounds much more like a fading, resentful aristocracy trapped in a gilded cage.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Medusa's parents, Phorcys and Ceto, were ancestrally incredibly powerful. They're children of the primordial sea gods Pontus and Gaia.
So pre-Olympian, ancient power.
Ancient untrammeled power, yeah.
Right.
Linked to the earliest creation myths.
Yeah.
But after Zeus and the Olympians prevailed in the Titanomachy, he effectively, he crippled their influence.
And just for anyone who needs a quick refresher, the Titanomachy was the defining celestial conflict, the Olympians overthrowing the Titans. So Phorcys and Ceto are essentially from the defeated faction.
Yes, the ones who were allowed to survive, but only under the strictest of terms.
Which were?
Zeus stripped them of their true power and commanded them to stay confined to their forsaken island. And crucially, they were forced under the authority of Poseidon's sea court. So they struggle constantly with this diminished status, forced to navigate the political waters of the very gods who neutered them. Their whole existence is just a constant, grinding humiliation.
And how do we see that humiliation manifest in the family dynamic? It sounds like they're trying to regain relevance through any means necessary.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Including their children.
Of course.
Their coping mechanisms are just utterly devastating to the family unit. Phorcys, the father, he focuses his residual power inward, sometimes violently, demanding that his daughter's immortal or mortal, doesn't matter, conform to his political agenda.
So his focus isn't on being a father, it's on what? Leveraging his daughters.
Leveraging his daughters as political capital to impress the Sea King. That's it.
And the mother, Ceto, she's the tragic counterpoint to this. She was once the goddess of all the ocean's monsters. I mean, controlling fleets of murderous sea beasts. And now?
Now she's pathetic in a way. The source material is very clear. Ceto is often consumed by wine, desperately seeking status from the Olympians through these petty boastings.
Like trying to compare her little feasts to the ones her sister-in-law Tethys has.
Exactly. She's grieving this colossal goddess she used to be, and she bitterly resents the appeasement that Phorcys insists upon. It creates this deeply toxic home life, where the parents are locked in a cycle of resentment and failed ambition.
And trying to marry off their daughters is the only way out they see.
It's their only move. And Medusa is the 17-year-old mortal caught right in the middle of it all.
And she feels this inadequacy so deeply. The source describes her as skinny with owlish brown eyes and dark skin, feeling like a common moth trying in vain to pass for a butterfly next to, the divine splendor of her peers and her own family.
That internal perception of being less than is a direct result of the political tension in her home. She is surrounded by beings who are physically and politically eternal, while she is constantly painfully aware that she could be snuffed out at any moment.
But that vulnerability, that's what fosters the intense bond she shares with her sisters, right?
It does. Initially, the Gorgon sisters, Steno and Euryale, are Medusa's protectors and her only real solace.
Steno, the eldest, is described as always surest, which is, what you need in an uncertain world.
And Euryale is the sweetest. They recognized Medusa's mortality very early on, and they shielded her. They recall this terrifying childhood drowning incident where they almost lost her.
So they're keenly aware that she's fragile in a world where they are not.
Which forces them to treat her with this exceptional, almost suffocating care.
And despite the, relative peace of their private island, Medusa's greatest desire is just to get out.
To escape the maddeningly familiar, peaceful but restrictive island. She yearns for the world she only knows through scrolls through history, philosophy, epics. She has a purpose outside of her parents' decaying court.
Yeah, that desire puts her directly on a collision course with the Olympians, the very gods her parents resent so much.
And we should probably pause here just to remind ourselves of the political landscape she is attempting to navigate. This includes the entire traditional pantheon. Aphrodite, Apollo, Ares, Artemis, Athena.
Demeter, Hephaestus, Hera, Hermes, Poseidon, Zeus. And then you've got that revolving 12th spot, sometimes Dionysus, sometimes Hestia. These are the rulers of her universe.
They are. And locally, at the center of the sea court is Poseidon, king of the sea, brother to King Zeus. He's charismatic, charming, the public face of power.
But the source immediately gives us this critical glimpse behind that facade.
It does. His wife, Amphitrite, is a silent glacial figure who perpetually looks angry.
And Medusa, with her sharp, observing eye, she picks up on this. She suspects their union was arranged.
And this is such a subtle but powerful insight the source offers. It shows that even at the highest level of divinity, marriage is a political tool. Personal happiness is secondary to status.
Which sets a pretty tragic precedent for Medusa's own fate.
Exactly. And the opportunity to raise her family's status arrives in the form of Prince Mahir, the demigod son of Ares. This is the catalyst for everything that follows.
Mahir's arrival is pivotal for Phorcys' ambitions. He's a demigod heir to a wealthy kingdom in Ethiopia. This isn't just about wealth for Phorcys, is it?
No, not at all. He's seeking a marriage alliance with someone connected to Olympus. It's a means to climb back up that social ladder.
So Mahir is introduced as this hero figure. Brave, strong, he captures and trains a fierce lion as a gift for Phorcys. It's all designed to impress.
But the source immediately tells us that Medusa's sisters are not easily fooled.
Steno, right, the always surest sister.
She delivers the critical observation here. She tells Medusa that the true measure of a man isn't his trophy, it's how he treats those below him.
And when Medusa looks closely at Mahir's slaves,
the full horror of his character is revealed. They have severe injuries, gouged eyes, missing limbs, shallow cuts that show chronic, systematic abuse. This is the moment Medusa recognizes that divine lineage does not preclude monstrous behavior.
And then Mahir chooses Euryale.
Fulfilling Euryale's deepest wish to leave the island and escape their toxic home life. But for Medusa, it's a nightmare. She knows Euryale is heading into a lifetime of servitude to a cruel, monstrous man.
So she's driven to desperation.
Her active intervention is selfless. It's driven by pure love and fear for her sister. She sneaks into Mahir's chamber, taking precautions to hide her identity. A modest tunic, loose locks so he won't recognize her as one of the sisters he'd just been courting.
And her plan is simple and, heartbreakingly naive. A bribe.
It is. She's offering sapphires and rubies that she gathered, valued based on her intellectual knowledge from reading scrolls.
Which is a fantastic moment of contrast, right? Medusa values intangible knowledge, the beauty of simple gems, and she thinks this earthly, accumulated wealth will sway him.
But Mahir, who inherits his power, his status, his wealth, he treats her offering with just utter contempt.
He dismisses the gems instantly.
Instantly. He boasts that his homeland is famous for its precious stones. He has no need of them. He only needs a wife of respectable birth. That's the insult that precedes the trauma. His power is absolute. Hers is conditional.
And it's right here that he attempts to violate her.
Yes. He reveals his entitlement, his predatory nature, telling her that marriage is a woman's sacred duty, and then, chillingly, that he prefers a woman's body before it changes.
Which just speaks to his obsession with control and youth.
It's in that moment when she is pressed against the wall that Medusa realizes her intellect, her bribes, they're useless. She sees a carving knife she stowed away earlier, but it's too far.
So her survival instinct kicks in.
Fiercely. As Mahir fumbles with her garment after she manages to strike him once, she searches for anything heavy, and she finds the golden goblet.
And she strikes him?
She strikes him with the heaviest object at hand, and he dies. Immediately.
The emotional aftermath is complex. The source says she doesn't feel horror.
No. She feels relief, vindication. She successfully defended herself, and she protected her sister.
The source offers this profoundly insightful piece of self-reflection from Medusa here, and it connects right back to her mortality.
It does. She finds this strange, unsettling clarity in his death. She notes that despite his Olympian lineage, he died easily, just as she, a mortal, could.
Threads pulled from the same cloth.
Exactly. Both subject to easy physical death. And this act of violence, born from necessity, it gives her an intoxicating, dangerous sense of consequence and power.
But murder, justified or not, immediately draws the unwanted attention of the divine power structure.
Of course. And in comes Athena, the calm, terrifying goddess of wisdom, war, and craft, arriving to investigate the death of Zeus's grandson.
She is the embodiment of Olympian authority and strategy.
And the evidence, two goblets and the valuable gems, points suspicion directly toward a slave or a servant. Specifically, Theo, a mortal Medusa cares deeply for, is in immediate danger.
And this is where Medusa's moral compass, her defining characteristic, immediately asserts itself. She confesses to Athena to protect Theo.
And Athena's reaction is the first moment of truly surprising insight into her character. It is not punitive at all.
She's intrigued.
She's intrigued. She finds Medusa's act of self-sacrifice to protect a slave admirable. This is a goddess who values strategy and justice, and she sees Medusa's willingness to face death for another as a form of intellectual and moral bravery.
And she even throws shade at her own divine family.
She does. She speaks ill of her own nephew, calling Mahir spoiled and boorish, like his father.
Wow.
It's a significant moment where an Olympian breaks rank, siding with justice over family lineage. Or, perhaps just recognizing that Mahir was not a strategic loss.
And Athena is clearly assessing Medusa's potential here. When Medusa mentions her reading habits, history, philosophy, epics, it confirms Athena's interest in her intellect.
It makes Medusa valuable for her mind, not just her potential dowry.
It's the perfect setup for manipulation.
It is. Athena extends this highly unusual invitation to become an acolyte in her temple on the Acropolis in Athens. She promises Phorcys that Medusa can return home intermittently.
And for Medusa, this is everything. An immediate fulfilling escape. It offers purpose, status, learning everything she ever wanted.
But her mother, Ceto, sees the trap. Clearly.
For all her drunken pettiness, she speaks a truth that's rooted in this ancient, terrifying memory.
She violently warns Medusa that Athena is a murderous monster, that she killed gleefully, brutally, without mercy during the Gigantomachy, the war between the Olympians and the giants.
And she also implies Athena was responsible for taking away Medusa's siblings or brother.
Right, though the exact details are a bit obscured by Ceto's rage. The implication is clear. Athena may appear rational, but she is fundamentally destructive and unforgiving.
A trait Ceto learned firsthand during those power shifts.
And Medusa, driven by this desperation to escape her family and convinced she can trust Athena, she just dismisses the warning as bitter cynicism. The tension is palpable.
She chooses potential freedom over her mother's warning.
And with that, Medusa leaves her restricted island, transported to Athens by Hermes, the god with tiny iridescent winged ankles. This move to Athens is so vital because it's where she attempts to forge her own identity, outside the shadow of her parents.
This is her formative chapter. She arrives and immediately faces the political reality of Athens. She has to hide her high-level parentage, address Athena only as goddess.
And more importantly, she is a medic.
We need to unpack that term medic because it defines her vulnerability in Athens. What does it mean practically?
A medic, or metoikos, was a foreign resident in ancient Athens. And while Athens was diverse and depended heavily on immigrants for trade and craft, medics were explicitly not entitled to full citizen rights.
So what does that mean for Medusa? No land.
She couldn't own land or property. She couldn't marry an Athenian citizen without severe legal hurdles. And she was always subject to summary deportation or taxation that citizens didn't face. She's a welcome guest, but her status is always contingent.
So she is trading one form of restriction, her toxic family, for another, institutionalized, legally enforced vulnerability.
Precisely. However, despite the grinding, tedious physical work scrubbing floors, mucking the barn, she finds a sense of fulfillment and purpose in the temple's daily routine.
The physical labor is a welcome change.
It is a welcome change from the idle, status-driven life on her island, and it provides the structure she craved.
She also forges her most important relationship in this period, the friendship with Apollonia.
Apollonia is a kind acolyte, and she provides a shield against the snobbery of the native Greek acolytes, particularly a girl named Callisto.
And Apollonia believes Medusa was chosen because of a genuine divine vision. She values her intellect.
Right. And this friendship is crucial because it roots Medusa's new life in genuine human connection, rather than just political calculation.
And Athena's priorities are immediately clear in the acolyte tests. They don't test piety,
No, they test intellect, wit, and wisdom.
which perfectly aligns with Medusa's own values. This is why she excels.
Let's look closely at the first test. It's a riddle. Men may give and take me, yet I consume them all. Who am I?
The answer is knowledge.
Medusa solves it quickly. She recognizes that Athena values abstract intellectual concepts above simple ritual.
But the conditions of the test are so fascinatingly manipulative. They have to drink Tacitaqua.
Yes, Tacitaqua, or silent water, a silencing potion crafted by Apollo. And this detail is hugely important. To ensure no discussion and maintain absolute control over the knowledge being shared, they have to silence themselves.
It's a fundamental contradiction within Athena's temple.
It is. She values wisdom, but she demands it be delivered in a highly controlled, singular way.
And Medusa, seeing Apollonia struggle, immediately breaks those rules of control.
She distracts the priestess, risking her own standing and safety, to give Apollonia time to submit her answer. This act just confirms her core instinct towards selflessness and justice for the vulnerable.
She's willing to defy authority for the sake of connection.
The second test is equally revelatory about her innate cleverness, the test of craft.
Right, Medusa has no traditional skills, no weaving, no pottery.
So instead, she braids and oils her own locks into a complex cross-hatched design on her scalp and declares, I offer myself.
And the high priestess, Eupraxia, is impressed.
She's impressed by the ingenious execution. Medusa is passing by valuing creativity, self-presentation, and wit over inherited or learned tradition. She's defining her own worth.
But as she gains confidence and purpose, her repressed anger from her past starts to surface. This is where we see that dangerous flaw that Apollonia later warns her about.
She starts to act out against perceived injustice. First, against Callisto's bullying, a relatively harmless act of putting a black garter snake in her bed.
But when the high priestess Eupraxia finds and kills the snake, Medusa flinches.
She recognizes her own capacity for dark trickery. But the real moment of clarity comes when her rage flares again in the city, seeing a boy bullying a little girl.
She slaps the boy.
Feeling instantly satisfied, vindicated, it's an intoxicating rush of power. She's finally defending the innocent and punishing the cruel. She's performing the justice the Olympians failed to give her against Mahir.
But the consequence is immediate. The little girl looks at Medusa with fear. Medusa has become the source of terror, not the protector.
And that's when Apollonia delivers that prophetic warning. Going after them, trying to avenge every wrong. That kind of hate can consume a person.
This is Medusa being shown her future.
Exactly. That her moral intensity, untempered by perspective or restraint, will inevitably turn her into the threat she sought to eliminate.
And this is the exact moment Medusa is intellectually and morally ready to choose her path, and that's when the Olympian establishment intervenes again, but this time in the form of Poseidon.
It's the ultimate violation of boundaries. Poseidon, king of the sea court, seeks her out while she is an acolyte in Athena's temple in Athens. He breaches Athena's sworn protection.
How does he even manage to establish contact and trust with her?
He finds her and returns a lost seashell necklace, a seemingly innocent act of intimacy and remembrance. He flatters her, focusing on her mortality, which he idealizes as vitality, real and precious life, something the immortal gods crave and cannot possess.
And he keeps visiting her.
He does, building trust and familiarity, leveraging her loneliness and her vulnerability as a medic.
The Panathenaea festival then provides the uninhibited setting.
Medusa attends, drinks Olympian wine, which is far more potent than mortal wine, and feels uninhibited. Then, during a visit back to her island home, Poseidon meets her in the garden. He has completely engineered this moment of vulnerability.
And he forces himself on her, ignoring her pleas.
Medusa is drunk and desperate, repeatedly pleading, "Wait, I can't." Poseidon ignores her, demonstrating the absolute impunity of a high-ranking god. The source is clear that this was calculated betrayal.
Uriel later says he earned her trust only to let her drown.
Exactly. Using the language of the sea, the language of her ancestors, to describe her trauma.
And the immediate aftermath is just all about institutional failure. Athena discovers the violation of her temple and her sworn priestess, and she demands Poseidon be punished.
And this is where we see Olympian politics prioritize power over justice. Poseidon, the king of the sea, publicly lies to his brother Zeus, claiming Medusa initiated the encounter and begged for his touch.
An easy, dismissive lie backed by his status.
And Zeus, the ultimate judicial authority, holds the judgment. He asks Medusa one single question. Did you say the word no?
It's the terrifying core of institutional injustice presented in the source. Zeus doesn't ask about the circumstance, the power differential, or the vulnerability.
No. He focuses solely on the narrowest legalistic defense possible. The specific utterance of a single perfect word.
And because she was inebriated and terrified, she can't swear to have said no. She remembers saying, "Wait," and "I can't."
And in that moment of institutional failure, Zeus declares he's heard enough. The imperfect testimony of a mortal, a low-status individual, is instantly dismissed in favor of the lie of a high-ranking god.
He politically absolves his brother.
It's a chilling moment that confirms Medusa's worst fears about the Olympian system. Justice is a luxury available only to the powerful.
And Athena, realizing she can't punish Poseidon without engaging in open war with Zeus, channels all her rage, her humiliation, and her political frustration toward Medusa.
Her betrayal is absolute. She curses Medusa instantly.
Huh.
Snakes replace her locks, inflicting this searing, burning pain. The transformation is meant as punishment for defiling her temple, but it is purely collateral damage.
Medusa is being punished for the fact that Poseidon violated Athena's property, not for the violation she suffered.
And the cost is immediate and devastatingly personal. Theo, the loyal slave Medusa, risked her life to protect, runs to her in concern, looks at her new serpentine head, and instantly turns to stone. He is her first unintended victim.
The curse weaponizes her existence against the very people she cares about most.
The guilt and horror drive Medusa to flee, knowing she's been simultaneously victimized, failed by the justice system, and turned to a monster by her disappointed patron goddess.
So she returns broken to her island home and finds her sisters, Stheno and Uriel. This is the moment the Gorgon trio is formed, not by nature, but by systemic trauma.
And the sisters have been cursed similarly. Snakes for hair and eyes that are now yellow with slitted pupils, but they also gain strength. And Medusa realizes she can, thankfully, control her lethal gaze. It is only activated when willed.
So the curse is giving them a protective lethal power.
It has. It is Uriel who helps Medusa process the calculated psychological nature of Poseidon's betrayal, that he earned her trust only to let her drown. But it's Stheno who provides the new, necessary, but extremist worldview for their survival.
Stheno embodies the emotional fallout of collective trauma. Her philosophy is uncompromising. You are with me or you are against me.
And chillingly, all men are cruel, Meddy. Some are just better at hiding it. This worldview is born from profound betrayal and fear, forcing Medusa to adopt a violent defensive stance.
And the source shows Medusa struggling with this philosophy. She initially spares a young boy who came to kill them.
She's clinging to the idea that not all men are cruel, hoping to find an exception to Stheno's rule.
But the cruelty keeps coming. Men arrive constantly, seeking to exploit or kill them for fame, proving Stheno right again and again.
Medusa is forced to accept that the only way to protect her family and her home is to use the power Athena gave her, the petrifying gaze. The irony here is so thick. The gods' injustice created the very monster they would later mythologize as evil.
This violence is momentarily interrupted by the reappearance of Apollonia, Medusa's friend from Athens, and she is also a victim of the same Olympian system that failed Medusa.
Yes, Apollonia was banished from the temple and cast out by her father for associating with Medusa and violating temple rules. Her life ruined by association with the cursed.
And she's found vulnerable, traveling with a merchant who sought to hire the Gorgons.
So Bekemsaf, a wealthy Alexandrian merchant who wanted to hire them to kill his rivals.
Yeah.
This just shows the immediate market value of their monstrous identity.
But Medusa and Apollonia manage to escape this exploitation and find a temporary safe haven.
They flee to the city of Cyrene and they find genuine happiness and love, living together as two widows. A quiet, peaceful, hidden life, free from the gods and the constraints of their old world.
This is Medusa's second and ultimately doomed attempt at building a normal life. And this section is so vital because it proves Medusa still craves peace and connection, not violence.
But the trauma and Medusa's internal, now weaponized demand for justice are still simmering. She learns that a local priest, specifically from an Athena temple in Cyrene, is exploiting vulnerable girls who come to him seeking prayer.
It's a direct echo of her own past. The temple, the vulnerability, the exploitation, it's a mirror of the injustice she suffered.
She cannot let it stand. Her protective instinct, warped by Apollonia's warning, takes over.
In a final, desperate, and tragically misguided act of justice, Medusa drugs Apollonia.
Using Melissa leaf powder as a sedative to ensure she sleeps through the night, then kills the priest, turning him to stone.
And this is the end of her hope for a quiet life. She uses violence one last time for what she perceives as a righteous cause, but immediately realizes the catastrophic consequence.
The king of Cyrene will seek retribution for the murder of a priest, putting Apollonia in mortal danger.
So Medusa makes the ultimate sacrifice. She flees in a boat, rowing back toward her isolated island home, effectively turning her back on love and happiness to protect Apollonia from the political consequences of her petrifying power.
She has chosen isolation and monstrous identity over companionship to save the person she loves.
She returns to her island, exhausted and completely broken. And it is here that she has her final conversation with Athena, the one who betrayed her.
And Athena appears, revealing that she watched Medusa's life unfold, including her intimate moments with Apollonia in Cyrene. This voyeurism confirms the ultimate lack of privacy and control a mortal has when dealing with the divine.
But Medusa has gained a profound wisdom that Athena, in her power, never had.
Medusa understands the fundamental weakness of the Olympians. Their power relies on faith. The more fervently they believe, the stronger we become. Their immortality is conditional upon mortal belief.
And Athena finally admits the real reason for her attraction to Medusa, moving beyond the superficial excuse of wisdom.
Athena admits she was drawn to Medusa's propensity for necessary violence. Athena, the goddess of war and strategy, saw a useful, focused weapon. Someone willing to defy convention and commit necessary acts of murder, not merely a disciple.
Medusa was a resource to be cultivated and, when compromised, discarded.
And Medusa's personal journey comes full circle when she finds Mahir's abandoned lion. She murmurs to the beast, who was also a victim of cruelty and training, "You are not a monster. You are only what they made you."
In that moment, she realizes the painful truth about herself.
Her monstrous identity is an external construct, imposed by the gods as a consequence of their own systemic failures and betrayals. She reclaims the narrative for herself, if only internally.
The epilogue provides the brutal finality of the myth we all know. Medusa is eventually murdered, decapitated by an unnamed Greek hero, turning her personal tragedy into a publicly celebrated heroic act.
And the lasting legacy rests with her sisters. Uriel's grief is so profound it causes the island to split in two. She and Steno spend years searching the world for Medusa's head, turning 1,000 men to stone, seeking justice and vengeance in the only way they know how.
And the Olympian pantheon fades. As mortals turn to newer, shinier gods' evidence that Medusa's knowledge about faith was correct, forces, Ceto, and even Zeus disappear.
And Athena, unable to adapt to the loss of reverence and faith, is rumored to have flung herself into the desolate depths of Tartarus.
But Stheno and Uriel, the original immortal sisters, remain.
They're immune to the loss of faith. They are eternal, rooted in something deeper than Olympus. They watch as Medusa's true story is forgotten, replaced by the simple, reductive myth made in Mistress Monstered legends.
And they remember her simply as Meddy,
forever memorializing the mortal woman she truly was.
What a profound and layered narrative. It completely transforms Medusa's story from a simple monster myth into this complex indictment of power, institutional failure, and the ultimate weaponization of a victim who is just seeking justice and freedom.
It's a tragedy that unfolds over 4 distinct phases. The toxic constraints of home, the political reality of Athens, the catastrophic institutional failure of Zeus's court, and then the eventual necessary violence of the Gorgon life.
The source demonstrates that the systems established by the gods, the chastity oaths, the rigid power dynamics, the failure to provide justice.
They didn't just fail Medusa, they actively engineered the very monster they feared and then mythologized.
That dense complexity leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. In a world where the gods' power relies entirely on mortal belief, does Medusa's defiance and subsequent transformation represent the ultimate failure of Olympian rule, a system so flawed it destroys its best minds? or merely the tragic proof that systems of oppression always manage to create their own resistance, however monstrous that resistance may become in the end.
Think about that moral ambiguity and the power of narrative to transform tragedy into terror until our next deep dive.